Hello, today we're going to take a look at trench maps, which can be a great source of information on the major battlefields of the Great War. They show in detail the changing front line and its associated communication trenches, as well as the location of enemy positions and defences such as gun emplacements, mines, barbed wire and observation posts. Trench maps record the names that soldiers gave those trenches and other nearby landmarks. During the First World War, millions of maps of the Western Front were printed by the British. Maps have always been a very important tool for military commanders, enabling them to manage their forces and plan battles. During World War I, the development of trench warfare made detailed mapping of this area of France and Belgium essential for commanders. Accurately plotting positions and the angular measurements between them was crucial for planning artillery bombardment, firing on hidden targets based on their precise location on a map. Major General MacLeod commanded the 4th Field Survey Company and said that in the battles of 1918 the gun was king and the theodolite and plane table its unadvertised but indispensable ministers. The British War Office had acquired mapping at 1 to 80,000 and 1 to 100,000 of France and Belgium, expecting those to be detailed enough for the mobile battles of previous wars. But when war broke out and both sides started to dig in, they realised more detailed maps would be required. The army had managed to rescue some Belgian 1 to 20,000 mapping from Antwerp before the Germans captured this city, and this proved a very useful starting point. A small team of Royal Engineer observers and topographers was joined by trained surveyors from the Ordnance Survey and other men of the Royal Engineers with map-making experience to survey the battlefields. Now this survey work was dangerous, and surveys didn't have direct access to areas occupied by the Germans, so aerial photography was also vital to support the work of surveyors. Aerial photography was crucial to understanding the enemy positions, enabling these to be detailed on maps. So from the beginning of the war, observation balloons and the Royal Flying Corps worked to gather information. This image shows an aerial reconnaissance camera of 1916. Aerial reconnaissance was very difficult and dangerous work. The Royal Flying Corps was continually developing new techniques and tactics, while their equipment developed over the course of the war. The war led to major advances in the capture, interpretation and use of aerial pictures. From October 1914, large-scale maps were printed by the Ordnance Survey at Southampton, but during the war, most production moved to France, so sheets could be printed quickly by hand presses and updated trench maps were issued rapidly to the troops on the ground. Trench maps used the standard topographic series mapping as a backdrop and overprinted it with other information such as trenches, battery positions and defences. Initially these maps were printed with German trenches in red. If British and Allied trenches were shown, these were in blue. But in early 1918 the decision was taken to reverse the colours, as French trench maps used the opposite colour scheme and had done so since the beginning of the war. If you look at the margins of these sheets, most include a key to the symbols used. You can see a wide range of military features were identified. The trenches, also gun emplacements, supply dumps, barbed wire, dugouts, craters and more. Most trench maps only show good detail for the German trenches, perhaps with only a brief indication of the front line. These were the standard maps used in the field. This example from 1917 shows only the German lines. Much smaller numbers of secret editions of trench maps depicting both British and German trenches were issued. This was to reduce the risk of their capture and use by the Germans. The policy was relaxed by 1918. This sheet 51B Southwest shows the British in blue and German trenches in red. Trench map sheet numbers and reference were based on the Belgian 1 to 40,000 sheet lines, and as these extended westwards into France, letter suffixes were added, as shown in this index map. Each 1 to 40,000 sheet was then divided into 4 1 to 20,000 sheets, with northwest, northeast, southwest and southeast suffixes added, and then each 1 to 20,000 sheet was divided into 4 1 to 10,000 sheets, adding the numbers 1 to 4 as suffixes, e.g. 28 southeast 3. In your research, you may come across coordinates giving precise locations in the trenches. Now these references use the main sheet map numbers, they divide the standard Belgian 1 to 40,000 sheet into squares lettered from A to X. Each of these squares is then divided into 1,000 square yard areas numbered from 1 to 36. So for example here we have B10. And then each of those squares was quartered into 4 500 yard squares lettered A to D. If you'd narrowed it down to that 500 square area, you could then pinpoint a location using eastings and northings. So on this 1 to 20,000 sheet, published in 1917, you can see the additions marked clearly, and if you wanted to give a reference for Siegfried Copse, this would be 62C.S.5.D.6.5. Many of the trench maps on our website include the names given to trenches and other features by the troops. From early in the war, soldiers from all nations were coming up with names for their surroundings. These were spread rapidly, and they were used in official reports and instructions. Names may reflect the places the troops had come from. So we have, for example, Mersey Tunnel there. You sometimes will see clusters of names starting with the same letter for a particular area. Haunted house perhaps indicates a particularly frightening location to be posted to. Names may be very descriptive, such as narrow, or they may reflect some of the horrors of the battlefield, such as Dead Bosh Alley or Devil's Trench. They may be very humorous, such as Hippo Lane or Darby and Joan. If you want to learn more about the names, I'd recommend the book Rat's Alley. Multiple editions of these trench maps were published during the course of the war, and these can help understand changes to the front line over time. This map of the Somme area was published in December 1916 and shows the changing front line during the Battle of the Somme. When the Germans withdrew to the defence of Hindenburg Line in early 1917, the area left behind was devastated. You often see villages marked as in ruins on sheets, for example this one from 20th September 1917. This edition of sheet 57D Southeast dates from May 1918 and captures many details concerning the organisation of enemy forces at this time. We hold a few hundred trench maps in our collection at the National Library of Scotland. Larger collections are held by the National Archives and the Imperial War Museum. We have digitised our holdings, and you can explore these on our Map Images website. From the home page, scroll down and click on Military Maps, and then choose Ordnance Survey, War Office, First World War Trench Maps. On this page there is information, further detail about these maps. There are several options for viewing the trench maps. If you know the sheet that you require, click on By Map Series and Sheet Lists, and you can scroll down to select the sheet you want to view. And when you click on the link, this will load a zoomable image of the map which you can explore. Alternatively, from the Trench Maps page, if you click on As Individual Sheets using a zoomable map, then you will get a graphic index that shows the areas covered by the sheets, and if you click on an area, you will get thumbnail images of the available maps. Click on one of these thumbnail images, and this will open an edition of the map. You can zoom in and explore the sheet. A few tips for this viewer. If you'd like to see more of the map on screen at one time, click on the full screen option, and then click on Standard Viewer to go back. If you want to annotate the map, click on Draw, and you can add points, lines or circle features on the map. And if you want to print or save this, click where it says Download PDF. If we go back to the search viewer, you can search by place name, or you could type in trench map coordinates to find maps for a particular location. I've put in the coordinates for Sanctuary Wood, and if I now click on the sheet and zoom in, we can see how this now has brought up the trench map covering that area, and we can see the network of trenches for that location. Another option is to return to our Maps homepage and click on our Georeference Maps viewer. make sure you select World before searching by place name, and you can search for locations, and then you can choose maps that cover that area from the drop-down list. So I'm going to pick 28 Northwest. You can also use this viewer to compare different editions of the maps. If you click choose any other layer as background map, we could then pick a different edition of that 1 to 28,000 sheet in order to compare. So let's pick, we've got June up, why don't we take the May edition? Now if you move this slider, it'll make one layer go transparent, and you can move back and forth and compare the different editions. As I mentioned before, both the Imperial War Museum and the National Archives hold large collections of trench maps. So if you can identify the sheets of interest to you on our website, you may be able to obtain other editions by contacting those. Thank you for listening to this talk. I hope it will help you discover trench maps as a source of information about the Great War. Please email us or complete the inquiry form on our website if you have any questions or would like to order copies of any of these historic maps.